Blue Protocol is Bandai's big next game to promote in the West, but I want to circle back to the Tales of franchise, a series I pretty much haven't touched on since a few months ago, maybe even longer. The future of Tales is kind of in the air. I mean, I don't think it's being canned or anything like that after the success of Arise, but we really haven't heard much about the series outside of the Symphonia remaster, which was embarrassing. While it truly hasn't been that long since Arise, what is the future of Tales of?
The relationship you two share is very unusual.
The obvious thing to talk about is the differences between modern Tales and older Tales games. Older Tales games play very differently, and while modern ones can be seen as an evolution of the original formula, it's still very different. This could be due to the fact that in order to expand, there were changes made so the gameplay systems would appeal to more people. That or this was the direction they decided to go in, without necessarily trying to figure out what would appeal to more people. Whatever the case may be, there are a lot of older fans who deem newer Tales games to be too button mashy, and things of that nature. There's a clear divide in the community over this, and it does beg the question of the direction of future Tales games.
If understand, then why ask?
Unfortunately, if you are one of those fans, I do think that Tales is going to head in the direction that Arise was headed in. Being the mega hit that it is by comparison to its other friends, it seems like the mass appeal of Arise is only going to mean moving away from the old formula. For some people, that's easily a deal breaker, and for others, it's a great sign of things to come. That is the unfortunate nature of change. And again, that's not necessarily a point towards Tales moving away from its older formula, but we've been seeing it move away for a while, so I think Arise is really the final departure from it. Fortunately for me and many others, I quite like the direction Arise moved in, at least in a gameplay sense. But I'm also not really someone who cherished or even really played the older titles. I've noticed that a lot of the time, people who haven't played the older titles will like the newer ones more, and people who have played the older titles will like the older ones more. But I think the gameplay itself was pretty solid, though I wouldn't mind some systematic changes, and maybe re-implementation of multiplayer. I think multiplayer is still a good selling point. It might not be for me necessarily, but I know there are a lot of people who did enjoy the multiplayer in Tales. But really, if I'm talking about anything that needs to change, it's the direction of story and writing. Arise clearly suffers from development issues during 2020, or something of that degree, because man does the story fall apart in the second act. I know people have issues with the first act as well, but I think if the second act followed up with the first act a little bit better, then there'd be less issues with that act overall. Alright, I'm gonna spoil some stuff for Arise a little bit, so if you haven't seen that, if you haven't played that game, skip to the next section. They clearly wanted to expand in the direction of space and another planet since the beginning, but when we finally get there, the rest of the game is over in maybe 15 more hours. Even more than that, the game continuously begins to use skits as expedition dumps, so we can go back and forth for the characters discussing information and throwing ideas around that really never get capitalized on at all. Again, while there are issues with the beginning of the game, there certainly would be a lot less in the end. If they had managed to bring everything back around. Unfortunately, the game does not manage to do that at all.
I think I get what's going on, though. Actually, none of it makes any sense to me.
This is the part where I try to predict when the next game is coming. So for starters, Blue Protocol is already out in Japan. Came out last month. That makes it more likely that Bandai will announce another anime original IP soon. However, they might also just hold off, given the fact that they need to continue promoting the game outside of Japan. Now, there are also people citing that it's been nearly 2 years since Arise, so the next game should be well underway. And parts of this are likely true, but how far underway? I really don't see a future where the next Tales game comes out by the end of 2024, simply because it probably won't be ready by then. Bandai has a few other original IPs that could see another entry sooner. It has been 4 years since Code Vein and God Eater 3. Those two games have a good chance of getting sequels sometime soon, especially Code Vein, which has performed the best of their anime original IPs. And Bandai is no stranger to failure. While I don't think that the next title will be another mobile game due to the shutdown of 2 of their mobile games, there's always a possibility that they try their hand at it again, because for some reason they think the Tales of IP can sell globally as a mobile game. Yeah, maybe Japan only, but not globally. I mean, there's clear evidence of that. In short, I don't see a new Tales of game on the horizon as of right now. It might be a while before we see the next game, potentially due to the poor performance of the mobile titles, and purely how small amount of time it's been since Arise. If you're going to cite that they used to crank out games like very, very often, remember game development has changed a lot since then. Games are more expensive, and if you're expecting them to pull Tales out of their butt again, I don't think that's going to happen. But hey, I could be wrong, and you might have some ideas of your own of when you think the next Tales of game is going to be, or what you think of Tales moving forward and the future of the franchise. So why don't you leave those thoughts down in the comments below. As always, you can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to the channel for more things Tales, Bandai, and JRPG related. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh shit. No. Oh shit.
Oh shit! Wait, what is that a poison? What is that a poison?
Oh wait, he died 3 times.